Bugsy Siegel was the one who turned heads. Tall, built, with a charm that women couldn't resist. He was the classic mobster, charismatic, violent, and completely unpredictable. His partner and closest friend, Meyer Lansky, well, he was a different story. Small, unassuming, a man you'd walk past on the street and forget a second later. But while Bugsy Siegel solved problems with his fists, Meyer Lansky solved them with a notebook and a pen. It was this exact friction that made them the perfect architects of chaos. Together, they didn't just break the law, they organized it. They built the foundation of modern organized crime and gave birth to the neon-lit gambling capital of the world, Las Vegas. This is Shadow Record. June 20th, 1947, late evening. Bugsy Siegel arrives at a girlfriend's home in Los Angeles. The house is empty. Outside, an assassin watches through the window. He sees Siegel light a cigar, pour 2 glasses of whiskey, and settle into a sofa. 9 shots tear through the glass. Bugsy Siegel was dead before the whiskey hit the floor. The police never solved the murder. In that world, nobody talks to the cops. But the name that always surfaces when the shadow of that night is discussed is the one name nobody expected: Meyer Lansky. In the city of Grodno, Jewish families knew that the hardest days weren't the ones spent in poverty. They were the holidays. While others celebrated, they locked their doors and hid in the dark. Local peasants would roam the streets on missions of destruction, looting and violence, leaving a trail of broken homes and shattered lives. Little Meyer watched it all from a window. He saw things no child should ever see. In those moments, he learned the first and most important lesson of his life. In this world, you are either the predator or the prey. You either have power, or you are at the mercy of those who do. Right then, Meyer made a vow: I will never depend on the mercy of anyone. By 1911, life in Grodno became unbearable. The family fled to New York, settling in Manhattan's Lower East Side. It was a chaotic, overcrowded world of Yiddish-speaking markets, delis, and street peddlers. No one made real money there, at least not legally. Meyer's father broke his back in a textile factory, while Meyer, a brilliant kid who skipped grades in school, spent his free time watching the street-side gambling games with a cold, calculating eye. That's where Meyer first saw the underworld, the streetwalkers and the gangs. And yes, in those days, Jewish gangs were a big deal. But the meeting that changed history happened during a territorial dispute. A kid pulled a gun, ready to fire. Meyer, watching from the sidelines, noticed the police nearby. He didn't hesitate. He stepped in, grabbed the kid's arm, and made him to drop the weapon before the law could see. And just like that, Meyer Lansky met Benny Bugsy Siegel. Meyer wanted to run his own gambling games, but he knew making money wasn't enough. He had to protect it. And who was better for the job than that muscular kid who seemed to genuinely enjoy violence? Together, they became the brain and the muscle. They ran the games, Lansky calculated the profits, and Bugsy collected the debts. They moved from street gambling to theft and brutal wars with rival gangs. No one could have guessed then, in the dark alleys of Manhattan's Lower East Side, that a gang of Jewish teenagers was planting the seeds of what would one day become a neon-lit oasis of light and gambling in the Nevada desert. The streets back then were cold. One evening, another chance encounter changed Lansky's path forever. A Sicilian teenager and his crew cornered Meyer in an alley, demanding protection money. Meyer, barely reaching the kid's shoulder, stood his ground. He looked them in the eye and told them to go to hell. The leader, a boy used to seeing men tremble in his presence, admired the sheer balls of the small Jewish kid standing before him. That teenager was Charlie Luciano. Years later, when he became the boss of one of New York's 5 families, the world would know him as Lucky Luciano. Luciano, Bugsy, and Lansky joined forces to transform street crime into a global syndicate. This is a moment worth stopping for. Until then, crime in New York was a matter of race. Italians stayed with Italians, the Jewish gangs kept to their neighborhoods, and the Irish? They fought everyone, including themselves. But Lucky Luciano was a visionary. He realized that to grow, he had to stop running a Sicilian street gang and start running a corporation. He called it the family, but it was a business, and in business, the bottom line is everything. If the small Jewish kid in front of him had a brilliant head for numbers and balls of steel, then his heritage wasn't a barrier, it was an asset. But we still have time before we get there. This alliance was formed at the perfect moment, just as the United States government was about to give them the opportunity of a lifetime. The 18th Amendment. It banned the manufacture, sale, and transport of alcohol across the entire United States. The government thought they were solving a problem. Instead, they created the largest, most profitable black market in human history. Overnight, a product everyone wanted became illegal, sending prices and risks sky high. And where there is risk and insane profit, Meyer Lansky feels right at home. This was the era when the alliance between Lansky, Bugsy Siegel, and Lucky Luciano truly flourished. While the small-timers were thinking about a few crates of whiskey, these 3 built a global smuggling empire. Meyer was the master of numbers. He never kept a physical ledger. There was no paper trail for the cops to follow. He was precise, he was fair, and he never stole a dime that wasn't his. In a world of thieves, he was the only man everyone trusted. Bugsy Siegel was the muscle on the ground, the man who feared nothing, running convoys of illegal spirits through the night. And Lucky Luciano brought the organized power of the Italians, controlling the streets and the docks. But during this rise, one name stood above them all: Arnold Rothstein. They called him the Brain. He was the mentor who transformed Lansky and Luciano from street thugs into world-class businessmen. Rothstein was a ghost, an intelligent Jewish gentleman who ran a gambling and loan-sharking empire while keeping the elite of New York in his pocket. Rothstein taught them the ultimate lesson of organized crime. Gunshots and explosions attract the police. Money keeps them away. Lansky lived by this. Envelopes under the table and the silent greasing of wheels became his trademark. Rothstein provided the connections and the capital to import high-quality spirits from Europe and Canada, using Lansky, Luciano, and Bugsy as his field commanders. From him, Meyer learned the dark art of money laundering, how to keep the cash clean and the trail cold. But life in the underworld is often short. Rothstein was eventually taken out over a gambling debt, leaving a massive vacuum at the top. Moving with surgical precision, Lansky and Luciano seized the empire they had built for him. They were no longer soldiers. They were the ones in charge. This is why these men are considered the founding fathers of organized crime. Before them, every dispute, every argument between gangs ended in a bloodbath. Bodies in the streets, police raids, and chaos that was bad for business. They saw what the old bosses couldn't. They had a vision, but there were two obstacles standing in their way. Two old-school bosses, Joe Masseria and Salvatore Maranzano. These men were fighting a primitive, bloody war for control of New York, trapped in ancient codes of honor and revenge. They refused to work with anyone who wasn't born in Sicily. To Lansky and Luciano, this war was a waste of time, and more importantly, a waste of money. Luciano realized that for the business to thrive, the dinosaurs had to go extinct. In 1931, he made his move. First, he betrayed his own boss, Masseria, having him executed in a Coney Island restaurant, while Luciano himself went to the bathroom. A few months later, it was Maranzano's turn. But this time, Luciano sent a specialized hit squad provided by Meyer Lansky. They arrived dressed as tax agents for a book audit, because Jewish faces didn't trigger any alarms in an Italian mafia headquarters. With the old guard dead, Lucky Luciano became the boss of all bosses. Now, he and Lansky could finally build their dream, the Commission. The Commission was the board of directors for the underworld. It consisted of the heads of the 5 families of New York and leaders from other major cities. They divided territories, settled disputes through arbitration, and even created a dedicated enforcement arm. If you broke the rules and hurt the bottom line, the Commission didn't argue. They issued a contract. They streamlined everything. Each group focused on its strengths. Lansky, the master of numbers, specialized in casinos and money laundering, providing those services to everyone regardless of territory. The result? Through the 30s and 40s, the streets went quiet, the police stayed away, and everyone made a mountain of cash. Bugsy Siegel, Lansky's closest friend, saw the potential that no one else did. Nevada, a place where gambling was legal, land was cheap, and Hollywood's deep pockets were just a drive away. He decided to build the Flamingo, the most luxurious hotel and casino the world had ever seen. High-end drinks, fine dining, and entertainment designed to lure the elite. The Commission was all in. They poured massive amounts of capital into the project, trusting Bugsy to turn a patch of desert into a city of lights. But there was one problem. Siegel was a man of muscle, not numbers. The project spiraled out of control, the costs ballooning to 5 times the original budget. The Commission didn't like surprises. They suspected Bugsy was skimming off the top, and these men weren't exactly the charitable type. They called a meeting to issue a contract on his life. In that moment, Meyer Lansky stepped in. He cast his veto, putting his own reputation on the line to save his friend. He asked for one more chance, just until the hotel opened. The Commission agreed, but they left Lansky with a warning. Now, he's your problem. The Flamingo finally opened, but the losses continued. Patience ran out. On June 20th, 1947, Bugsy Siegel was executed in his own home. The police never solved it, but exactly 20 minutes after the shots were fired, 20 minutes, a crew belonging to Meyer Lansky walked into the Flamingo. They informed the staff that there was new management, and that the old manager was no longer with them. Once Lansky took control of the books, the machine started to hum. Money flowed like water, more hotels rose from the sand, and Las Vegas was born. The money they made was beyond comprehension. But even with suitcases of cash flowing to politicians and police, the FBI could no longer ignore the neon elephant growing in the desert. The Bureau became the underworld's shadow, waiting for the slightest slip on any case they could build. Everyone knew Lucky Luciano was the head of a criminal empire, but in the end, they took him down on charges of pimping and prostitution. Others fell for tax evasion, or minor technicalities. Their common mistake? Flash. They lived in luxury towers, spent their nights in glittering clubs, and drove cars that cost more than a house. But guess who the FBI could never catch? While his partners played the role of kings, Lansky stayed in the neighborhood where he grew up. He lived in a modest house, drove an ordinary car, and walked to the local grocery store. He understood the golden rule of the underworld: what you don't show, the government can't take. As Luciano was sent to prison and the ring around the commission tightened, Lansky felt the heat rising in America. He decided it was time for a long vacation in Cuba. There, far beyond the reach of American investigators, he built a new paradise. An entire island where he wasn't just a gangster, he was a business partner to President Batista. In exchange for a heavy cut of the profits, Batista gave him a free hand to build the Riviera, the most magnificent casino on Earth. Havana became the international capital of gambling, and by coincidence, the final terminal for all the heroin entering the United States. The secret to Lansky's success was simple. He played a clean game. Unlike other mob joints, his casinos didn't cheat. He knew two things. Gamblers aren't stupid. If they feel rigged, they won't return. And more importantly, he knew the math. He told his partners, give them a show, feed them, keep them happy. Don't worry, the house always wins. This integrity turned his name into a brand, transforming gambling from a back-alley crime into a first-class experience. But in 1959, the world exploded. Fidel Castro marched into Havana, and his first move was to seize every cent the mafia owned. In a single night, Lansky watched tens of millions of dollars vanish into the smoke of the Cuban Revolution. By the 1970s, with the FBI breathing down his neck, Lansky pulled his final card, his Jewish identity. He fled to Israel, seeking citizenship under the law of return. But the drama turned international. The United States put Israel in a stranglehold, demanding his extradition. Israel was caught between its sacred laws and the pressure of a superpower. In 1972, after a 2-year legal battle, the Supreme Court rejected his petition. The ghost was forced to move on. If you've seen The Godfather Part 2, you remember Hyman Roth. That character is a mirror image of Meyer Lansky. There's a legendary speech in the film about the hit on Bugsy Siegel, about how in their world, business is business and there are no room for tears.
He had an idea to build a city out of a desert stopover for GIs on the way to the West Coast. And the city he invented was Las Vegas. Someone put a bullet through his eye. No one knows who gave the order. And I said to myself, this is the business we've chosen.
It's the ultimate cinematic tribute to the man who built the Syndicate. When asked about his fictional counterpart, Lansky simply smiled and said, "Roth's mistake was trusting people based on emotion. I never trusted anyone who didn't have a financial interest in being loyal to me." Meyer Lansky died in 1983. In his official bank account, they found a ridiculous sum, almost insulting compared to the empires he managed. But Lansky didn't die poor. He died smart. To this day, experts believe hundreds of millions, billions in today's money, remain hidden in a web of Swiss accounts and shell companies that only the accountant of the mob could ever decode.